Hello, and welcome to today's episode of English with Tuna. I'm so glad you're here, because what we're going to talk about today is something deeply important, not just for learning English, but for becoming a better communicator, a better friend, and honestly, a better human being. Today's topic is simple but powerful: how to listen better. Now, before we dive in, I want you to ask yourself a very honest question. Am I a good listener? I don't mean whether you hear people when they speak. I mean, do you really listen? Do you make the other person feel seen, heard, and understood? Or are you just waiting for your turn to talk? If we're being honest, most of us don't listen as well as we think we do, and that's okay. The good news is that listening is a skill, and like any skill, it can be learned, practiced, and improved over time. So let's take a moment and really explore this. Let's go beyond active listening as a concept, and instead, let's break down what it actually means to listen better, especially when you're communicating in English or any second language. Listening is often called a passive skill in language learning, but I completely disagree with that label. Listening is anything but passive. In fact, real listening is one of the most active things you can do. When you listen, your brain is working hard. You're processing vocabulary, catching tone, recognizing grammar patterns, connecting ideas, interpreting emotion, reading between the lines. You're analyzing not just what is being said, but how it's being said and why. That's a lot of work, and it's an incredibly powerful skill, one that often separates fluent speakers from struggling ones. Let me give you an example. Have you ever been in a conversation where the other person says something simple like, "I'm fine," but you know they're not fine? How do you know? It's because of how they said it. Maybe their voice dropped, or they didn't make eye contact, or their tone was flat. That's the power of listening beyond words. You're not just catching the language, you're catching the emotion, the truth beneath the surface. And when you do that, communication becomes real. But in order to get there, we have to train our ears, our minds, and even our hearts to listen better. And that's what we're going to do in this episode. Let's start with the first and perhaps the most important element of good listening: presence. To listen well, you have to be present, fully. Not thinking about what you're going to say next, not checking your phone, not distracted by your to-do list. Just here, in the moment, giving the other person your full attention. And believe me, people can feel it when you're present. They can feel it when your eyes are on them, your mind is with them, and your energy is focused. It makes them open up. It makes them feel safe. That kind of presence is rare in today's world, and that's exactly why it's so valuable. Presence doesn't mean being perfect. It just means real. Even if you don't understand every single word, if you're truly listening, if your body language, your eye contact, your silence all say, "I'm with you," the connection still happens. And that's the kind of listening that makes people remember you. The second thing I want to talk about is curiosity. One of the biggest mistakes we make when listening, especially in second language conversations, is focusing too much on understanding every word instead of trying to understand the person. The truth is, you don't need perfect comprehension to be a good listener. What you really need is curiosity, a deep desire to know what the other person is trying to say, what they're feeling, what matters to them. When you listen with curiosity, you naturally ask better questions. You don't just ask, "What did you do today?" You ask, "What was the best part of your day?" Or, "What made you smile today?" That shift in mindset changes everything. It turns small talk into real talk. It makes the other person feel like you care, because you do. And you'll be amazed how much people open up when they feel someone is truly curious about their story. Now, let's move to something more technical, but still very human: listening for patterns. One of the best ways to improve your listening skills in English is to train your ears to notice patterns instead of individual words. Think of language like music. When you listen to music, you don't focus on each note, you feel the rhythm, the melody, the emotion. Language works the same way. Native speakers don't listen word by word, they hear ideas, tone, stress, emotion. That's why, if you're too focused on translating word for word, you'll always feel one step behind in a conversation. But if you train yourself to hear the flow of English, the chunks, the phrases, the rhythm, you'll understand more, even if you miss a few words. This is especially important in real-world conversations, where people speak fast, use slang, or talk with accents. Trying to catch every single word is exhausting and unnecessary. What you really need is to catch the main idea, the feeling, the key points. And that's where training your ears to hear patterns will help you most. Let's not forget another big part of listening, and that is patience, both with yourself and with the other person. Real listening takes time. Sometimes you'll feel lost. Sometimes you'll ask someone to repeat what they said. Sometimes you'll feel frustrated that you didn't understand everything. And that's okay. That's normal. That's part of learning. The key is to stay calm, stay open, and stay kind, especially to yourself. Because every time you listen, really listen, you are improving, even if you don't see it right away. And when it comes to conversations with others, patience is just as important. People speak at different speeds. Some people get nervous. Some people express themselves in ways that are different from your own. But if you're patient, if you give them the time and space to finish their thoughts, they'll feel respected. And when people feel respected, they communicate more clearly, more honestly, more freely. Now, let's talk about something that might surprise you. Silence. Yes, silence. Most people think of listening as something we do with our ears, but it's also something we do with our silence. When you're not interrupting, when you're not filling every gap with your own voice, you create space. And in that space, the other person's truth can come out. It takes courage to stay silent. Sometimes we feel the urge to respond quickly, to fix, to advise, to share our own story. But good listening means resisting that urge. It means allowing a moment of silence, a breath, a pause. Because in that pause, something meaningful might emerge. And the more comfortable you become with silence, the more powerful your presence becomes. Another way to become a better listener is to listen with your whole body. Sounds strange? Let me explain. We usually think of listening as something we do with our ears and our brain. But the truth is, our body is a big part of how we show that we're listening. Think about your posture. Are you leaning in or leaning away? Are you facing the speaker or turned slightly away? Are you making eye contact? Are your hands still or are you fidgeting with your phone? All of these small things send a message. They either say, "I'm here with you," or "I'm somewhere else." So if you want to be a better listener, don't just use your ears. Use your eyes, your face, your gestures, your stillness. Let your whole body say, "You matter to me. I'm paying attention." Now, I know some of you might be wondering, what if I don't understand what someone is saying in English? What should I do then? Great question. First, stay calm. Don't panic. It's okay not to understand everything. The key is to use simple strategies to keep the conversation going. You can ask, "Can you say that again, please?" Or, "Sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you repeat it more slowly?" Or even, "I'm still learning. Would you mind explaining that word?" These are not signs of weakness. They're signs of someone who cares about understanding. And guess what? Most people will appreciate your honesty and your effort. Listening is not about being perfect. It's about being present, being open, and being humble. Now, let me share one more idea that can truly change the way you listen, and that is listening without judgment. Too often, we listen with a filter. We listen and immediately start judging. That's wrong. That's weird. I don't agree. But the best listeners, the ones who make others feel heard, are the ones who suspend judgment and just receive. That doesn't mean you have to agree with everything. It just means you allow the speaker to finish, you try to see things from their perspective, and you listen to understand before you respond. When you listen this way, without rushing to fix, defend, or disagree, you create real connection. And in this world, that's a rare and beautiful gift. So, my friend, if you want to become a better English speaker, listen more. If you want to deepen your relationships, listen more. If you want to grow wiser, kinder, more thoughtful, listen more. But not just with your ears. Listen with your presence, with your patience, with your body, with your silence, with your heart. Because the best listeners are not the ones who understand every word. They are the ones who make people feel understood. And that is something anyone, including you, can learn to do. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope it gave you not just tips, but a deeper appreciation for what listening truly is. If this resonated with you, feel free to share it with a friend, or even better, try practicing one of these ideas in your next conversation. You might be surprised by how powerful the simple act of listening can be. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep listening. This is Tuna, signing off.